along. I'm in the tune of freedom song. Everybody get on board. From north to south, from shore to shore.
I thought I'd like to tell a little story, kind of give you an idea of who I am. And for those of you that have read Late Bird, you've heard this story, or you read the story. In Southern California, they had a way of, I guess, labeling, and it was very, very destructive. So when I went to school, I was in second grade. I took all the tests, and I did very well. School was fortunately for me. I was blessed with a curious mind, and when you have a curious mind, you read a lot. And one of the things I used to do is I would bring books to the table, to the dinner table. My mom would tell me, "Okay, Jason, put the books away." So I'd hide them under my legs so I could read. And finally, she'd take the books, and so I started reading the milk carton in front of me. And eventually, everything off the table that had any word on it was gone. So I had to talk to my parents. But needless to say, my curious mind and the combination of that and reading and having two loving parents, my brain was filled with information. So when I went to school and I took the basic tests, I did very, very well. I was labeled what was called back then a late bird, and that's hence the reason the name of the book. Late bird meant I got to come to school a little bit later than the other kids, if I remember correctly. And then when I did, they actually just pushed us out into the playground, which was fine with me because I would have spent the entire day on the playground. I wanted to play kickball and dodgeball and run around and chase the girls, and I wanted to enjoy my life as a second grader. School, although interesting, wasn't really enjoyable. So I was labeled as a late bird, and that worked out okay for me because I was being labeled as one of the smart kids. So the other kids that didn't do so well on the tests, of course, graded on a curve, ended up being called early birds. And they specifically called us these things. And when the early birds would, of course, come to school early, and then when they were done gathering those quote-unquote needed skills, they would go out into the playground to play with us for just a few minutes. And when they would come out, they were embarrassed because the teacher had labeled them stupid. Now, people like to think that children don't understand what's going on. I find this to be absurd when adults are doing and saying things in the company of children, even as young as 2, 3, and 4, and they don't think that children don't understand. You were children yourselves. You remember these things. How do you not think your kids aren't picking these things up? I mean, especially when children, their primary need, again, water, food, shelter being met, they just want to belong. They don't have a job, so they're going to belong through you. So they're going to focus on every single thing you're saying. So as adults, whoever came up with a system to actually label children, this is absurd. What are you doing? Are some kids going to need more help? Sure they are. Okay, but you don't actually label them that way. So when the early birds would come out, some of them were some of the weaker kids, and some of them were actually some of the bullies. But as they came out, they were embarrassed because they were already being told by the teachers, by society, that they were stupid. Back then the term was retarded. And so when they came out, the bullies went hunting, and they went looking for people. And sometimes they bullied the other early birds, and sometimes they bullied the late birds. One of these times happened for me. As I was coming to school, there was a group of kids buried around a kid that had been, I believe, a late bird, and he was being punched and kicked and abused. And I'd seen that once before as a child, and I just, the first time I'd seen it, I was with a bunch of other kids, and we just rolled on by, just got away from them. And I remember that night, it hurt me so much I couldn't sleep because I kept seeing this little kid who was being beaten up, same age as me, but I see this kid being beaten up and I didn't do anything about it. So as school went on, these things happened, and I saw it again. Different situation, different kids. And so I went up there with the understanding or the concept that it wasn't that I was brave or that I was a tough kid or anything of those things. I just knew that if I ignored this, I was going to die some more inside. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to focus. I had to get in there. And so as these groups, 6, 7, 8 of these kids were around this younger kid, and they were punching him and kicking him, and I went over and said, "Hey, Why don't you just leave him alone? Okay, well, that did serve my purpose, because they completely ignored him and surrounded me. So out of the corner of my eye, I did see him actually get up and run away. Now, I was thankful that he did, because my goal was to actually protect him, but I have to admit, I was a little upset that he didn't jump in and help me. But as I've come to find out in life, those that can do, and those that can't, run away. That's why those that can do have to bond together. And that's where we are in America right now. We have to come together. So as I was surrounded by those kids, I was given a choice. And it wasn't a pretty one. Lay down. Lay down. Let one of us punch you and kick you, and don't fight back, or we're all going to jump on you and beat you down. Well, that's not much of an option, really, especially if you're in my head. I'm a little kid. I have no skill. I have no fighting skill. I've never been in a fight in my life. I have 2 loving parents. I don't, other than roughhousing around and enjoying athletics, I don't have the needed experience or even talents to fight back here. So I did what every little kid did. I looked for an authority figure, which should have been on the playground. And she was. I saw her about 20 feet away, standing there with her whistle in her mouth, and she kept looking at me, and looking at me, and I kept wondering why she wasn't going to stop this, and she just didn't. And finally, when she turned away, the circle got onto me greater, and I started being punched and kicked, and eventually a couple of them grabbed me and slammed me to the ground. And as I started to get back up, the kid told me again, you got 2 choices. We're all going to just beat you to death, or you can lay down. So I laid down. And I live with that every day of my life. And that was the last time I laid down. So I say to you, America, no more laying down. Stand with me, shoulder to shoulder. I'm willing to do the hard part. I'll serve. I'll do whatever it needs to take to get there. But I can't do it alone. I need my brothers and sisters to watch my back. And I'll watch yours. And we'll do this together. God bless the United States of America. Amen.
Can you hear the wheels as they roll along? I'm in the tune of freedom song. Everybody get on board. From north to south, from shore to shore.